出生于南非，崛起于硅谷 ，SpaceX、Tesla、PayPal 等众多商业奇迹的创建者，传闻中钢铁侠的原型。他到底是一个什么样的人？如何萌生出那些伟大或者说疯狂的梦想？他真的和钢铁侠一样无坚不摧吗？在北京的特斯拉展厅，43岁的马斯克接受了财新传媒总编辑胡树立的专访，畅谈自己的人生与事业思考，以及从年轻时就开始的电动汽车梦。
You have a lot of fans in China even before you were here. So how do you depict yourself like in front of Chinese?
In fact, I didn't even realize that I was well known in China. I didn't realize that at all. So, so it was kind of a surprise. But certainly, I feel very honored and very well received and feel very welcome. I guess the way that I usually describe myself is an engineer, because that's basically most of what I do is engineering. So I spend most of the week with my engineering and design team working on the current car and future cars and the rockets and spacecraft and that kind of thing.
I noticed your start software designs when you were 10 years old,
yeah.
And got success in 12 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but then you were in Southern Africa. So how did you decide to leave your hometown and realize your dream in North America?
So, I mean, I should say that, when I was a kid, I didn't really have any grand designs. I mean, the reason I started programming computers was because I like computer games. And I play lots of computer games, and I learned that if I wrote software and sold it, then I could get more money and buy better computers. So it wasn't really, with some grand vision or anything. When I was growing up, I'd read lots of books, and they were very often set in the United States, and it seemed like a lot of new technology was being developed in the United States. So I thought, okay, I really want to work on new technology, so I want to get to Silicon Valley. Which when I was growing up, Silicon Valley seemed like some sort of mythical place, like Mount Olympus or something.
So when you thought about the Silicon Valley, you were still in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you were still in your teenager time.
Yeah. I tried at first to convince my parents to move to the U.S., but neither of them would move. They were divorced, and so eventually I was able to get my Canadian citizenship because my mom had been born in Canada. So I moved first to Canada by myself when I was 17, and then a few years later I moved to the U.S.
So you decided to go to Stanford, go to Silicon Valley, yeah, after you graduate, right?
Yeah.
As we mentioned, at that time, actually, the middle of the 1990s, I didn't feel that the gold rush in time, at least for me, because
True,
I was there, yeah. And I heard about that, but I didn't feel that the way. Yeah. So, but how did you decide to start your own company and give up your study in Stanford?
The reason I came out to Stanford was actually to work on energy storage technologies for electric cars. That summer of '95. I was looking at the internet, and it seemed to me like the internet was going to have a big effect on humanity. So I thought, well, I can either work on electric vehicle technology and do my PhD at Stanford and watch the internet get built, or I could put my studies on hold and try to be part of the internet. And at first I tried to get a job at Netscape because that was the only internet company, and they didn't respond to me. So then I was like, okay, if I can't get a job at the only internet company, then I better try starting something. But I talked to my professor and I said, look, I'm going to try starting a company. It's probably not going to succeed. And if it doesn't succeed, can I come back? And he said, sure, no problem. And so I put my studies on hold and started the company.
马斯克创立的软件公司 Zip2 让他掘到了价值不菲的第一桶金。随后，他参与创建和管理的在线支付公司 PayPal 也迅速成功，并被eBay收购。成为第一大股东的马斯克将1.65亿美元收入囊中。那是2002年，马斯克31岁。
So you plan to build electric cars from that time actually. So yeah. So So after working for internet, for PayPal, you decide to come back to your own dream.
Yes.
Yeah, to do the electric car.
I actually, when doing the two internet companies, I thought that, I thought that the big car companies would create electric cars, and that would be no need for a startup company. But then I was shocked to see like the General Motors EV1 and that General Motors recalled their EV1 and crushed all of the cars. I don't know if it was a movie made about it called Who Killed the Electric Car, and so it was like, wow, this is terrible. So I thought, well, if the big car companies are not going to create electric cars by themselves, then it's necessary to create a startup to do electric cars, to show that it's possible to create a compelling electric car. So we created Tesla.
So before sell the PayPal, you didn't think about making electric car?
No, I did. Well, not exactly. It's more from the standpoint of I think it's important that electric cars are created. So when I was doing my undergraduate in physics, I thought, okay, what are the things that are most likely to affect the future of humanity? One of them being the internet, sustainable energy, both production and consumption, making life multiplanetary. There were a couple of other areas that I thought would affect the future, but I wasn't sure I wanted to be involved in, and those were artificial intelligence and rewriting genetics.
And right now you have three really, really significant and interesting businesses, Solar City, electric car, and SpaceX.
Right.
Will you devote the rest of your life for three of them, or going to sell some of them when they got success?
I have no plans to sell the companies. Yeah. And
You say you're going to stay with them?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Among the three, which one is a priority?
So I characterize Tesla as being like focused on a problem that's critical this century. SpaceX is working, on a problem that I think is more of a millennium type of problem. It's a very much longer term thing. That doesn't. It's not as though one is more or less important than the other. It's just a question of the time scale.
But Tesla is more like emergency with a lot of present problems, right? Challenging. It's more challenging for you, Tesla, right now.
They're both quite challenging. They're challenging in different ways. And I split my time about evenly between Tesla and SpaceX. So it's about 50-50.
50-50. Oh,
Yeah,
You're so creative. Do you plan to have some other big ideas, like big companies, or a startup with big ideas?
Well, I mean, I do have some additional ideas that I think would be interesting. I want to mention this idea for a new mode of transport called the Hyperloop, which you may have read about. And I think it would be interesting to do a vertical takeoff and landing supersonic jet, electric jet. But I think for now I'm just going to be focused on SpaceX and Tesla, and a little bit on Solar City, and that leaves me pretty strung out. So I mean, I think so. I have more ideas than I can really execute on. That's why the sort of Hyperloop idea, I just made that sort of open source. So if anybody wants to do it, they can do it. I didn't try to patent it or anything.
2002年，马斯克与他人合作创办了太空技术公司 SpaceX。2004年，他带领 A 轮融资进入成立不久的电动汽车公司特斯拉，成为联合创始人之一。如今10多年过去了 ，SpaceX 已经和美国航空航天局签下10亿美元量级的火箭发射订单，并在研制可回收反复使用的火箭。而特斯拉也进入了爆发性增长阶段。2010年6月，特斯拉汽车在纳斯达克挂牌，这是1956年福特汽车上市以来，美国第一次有新汽车公司 IPO。2013年起，随着 Model S 在市场上大受追捧，特斯拉股价疯狂上涨，马斯克成为了不少人眼中近乎神奇的成功创业家。有报道说，风靡全球的电影《钢铁侠》正是以马斯克为原型改编的。
Mr. Musk. How are you?
Congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you very much.
钢铁侠斯塔克和马斯克的名字都以 K 结尾，而马斯克本人却也曾在钢铁侠系列电影的第2部客串出场。
Last night I read the Chinese websites. All the headlines were Iron Man in China.
Really?
Iron Man in China. Talk about you. All the headlines everywhere. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Actually, until you told me that, I didn't realize. I mean, I knew there was one article, but I didn't realize there were lots of articles. No, seriously?
Even before, seriously.
Wow.
Your career story is fantastic, eventually with a lot of success.
I mean, I should say, the success looks maybe more obvious now, but it certainly did not look like that in the past. 2 years ago, I was personally having some difficulties. You know, the companies were having some challenges, and so I think I was not in a sort of a positive frame of mind. Like I said, the last maybe 1 to 1.5 years have been good, but even if you go 2 years back, it was very tough times.
Was there any great failure, like you think you have had?
Well, I certainly have lost many battles. So far, I've not lost a war, but I've certainly lost many battles.
How many battles?
Oh, yeah, more than I can count, probably. I mean, we had many, at Tesla, we came many times close to bankruptcy. In fact, at the end of 2008, we were only a few days from bankruptcy. It was literally 2 days, or 3 days maybe.
So what have you learned through that kind of failed battles?
Oh, I think good fortune certainly plays some role in things. I think for Tesla, one of the things that helped us get through the very difficult time was that the core group of people at the company really believed in the mission.
2014年4月22日，马斯克在北京向首批8位中国买家交付了 Model S 纯电动轿跑车，正式宣告了在中国的疯狂冒险。此前，特斯拉在中国水土不服的消息屡见报端，原特斯拉中国区总经理郑顺景离职，进口车身份无法获得补贴，23位来自非京沪地区的特斯拉订单车主因不满交车顺序而集体投诉。之后还有充电配套、售后服务等一系列难题。马斯克打算如何面对这一切？
You know, I was in Palo Alto last January when you announced. I was surprised that you announced, Tesla plans to come to China. You used to say China was a wild card. Why did you decide to play the wild card then?
Well, I think there's no question China is an extremely important market. I mean, if you reference back the stated goal of Tesla, which is to help accelerate the advent of sustainable transport, if we don't do something in China, then we are not succeeding in our goal.
So what is the biggest challenge you could predict right now in China's market?
Well, we've got a lot of work to do because we've got a lot of service centers and charge stations to construct. So mostly it's like we're trying to build our service and charge infrastructure as fast as possible. And I know this, some of the customers who have ordered a car, they're not in the major cities, so they're a little unhappy with us because we are delaying delivery of their car. And in fact, I'm going to apologize to some of them personally and explain the reason we are delaying delivery is because we really want them to have a good experience. But if they're too far from a service center and the charging is not sorted out, then they will not have a good experience. So we're going to delay the cars just for a few months to make sure that they have a good experience.
What is Tesla's strategy in China? How are you going to play the card in China?
I mean, our strategy is very straightforward. In fact, I mean, I think, I'm a very literal person. So, pretty much take what I say at face value. That's what I mean. So, in the case of China, we want to establish service infrastructure, charging infrastructure throughout the country. So we're going to make a big investment in charging and service. And then probably in about 3 or 4 years, we expect to do local production of cars. Because it's not going to make sense long term to be transporting cars from California to China. It makes more sense to do local market production. And I think we'll probably have an engineering and development center in China as well.
According to present policy in China, that means you are going to set up a joint venture with a Chinese partner. Do you have any potential target, like a partner? Or
No,
what kind of standard are you going to choose as your possible partner?
We really have not, we're not engaging in those discussions right now because we are so small as a company. I mean, one needs to crawl, then walk, then run. And we're still in the crawling phase. In fact, today I'm going to be handing over the first cars ever to customers in China. So it's still very early for us. I think maybe we would have discussions in a year or two. Yeah.
China also subsidize electric cars. Like, have you heard of that? Subsidies. Yeah. And do you want to get such subsidy, and will you consider the access to subsidy as a condition for your going on business in China?
Well, I mean, I think to some extent this has to be obviously a decision of the senior government officials, which is, I think they've clearly stated the goal of having a large number of cars, electric cars on the road in China. So to the degree that we have import tariffs and do not have access to any electric car incentives, then that makes the car more expensive and delays the progress of electric vehicles on the road. So I would certainly hope and request that Tesla have access to these incentives with the clear understanding that we are going to do local production long term, but it's too early for us to do it now.
The challenge about the charging network is very, very important, like for an electric car. So what is your plan to build the charging network in China?
So we have a technology called the supercharger, which is a very high-speed charging capability. And we are going to be placing superchargers throughout China. So you'll be able to drive almost anywhere. Maybe not the desert in the interior, but almost anywhere on the coast, let's say. And using the Tesla supercharger network. And our superchargers combine high-speed charging with solar panels, which is an important combination to address both the generation of energy and the use of energy.
So you don't have to work with like a state grid?
We don't have to, and it's possible for us to make the charging stations completely independent of the grid. Because we also add a stationary battery pack. So the solar panels charge the stationary battery pack, which charges the car, which gives a 24-hour-a-day charging capability. However, it's usually still advantageous to connect to the grid because there are times when we will produce excess energy that we can then provide back to the grid because we want each charge station to be energy positive.
Now I'm concerned about our smoke weather. You heard about it. Is there any potential impact for solar power?
Well, on some days, if it's very hazy, the solar power is reduced. So we have to have more panels in order to generate necessary power.
I see. So it's okay. It's going to go through, right?
Yeah, it just means we have to have more panels than would otherwise be the case.
特斯拉旋风刚刚席卷中国的时候，无论是媒体还是大众，总会将其与中国新能源汽车的代表比亚迪做比较。此前，马斯克在接受彭博社专访时这样回应与比亚迪的竞争
BYD is trying to compete. Why do you laugh?
Have you seen their car? I don't think they have a great product.
而比亚迪董事长王传福曾放话，分分钟造出特斯拉。
How do you think of Wang Chuanfu and BYD? I mean the head of BYD. Do you take him as your head-to-head competitor?
You know, I don't really think about competitors all that much. You know, the goal of Tesla really is to accelerate the advent of electric cars. It's not to take market share away from other companies or do any of that sort of thing.
Do you want to meet him?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to meet him.
Yeah. Are you confident with Chinese customers' loyalty to Tesla's brand?
Well, I think loyalty is something that is earned. So if we take the actions that deserve loyalty, then we will receive it.
That's great. In the new energy field, electric cars and hybrid cars are two future different directions. Which one do you think will be the more hoping direction?
I think, yeah, everything will be completely electric. It's just a question of when. And for a while at Tesla, we considered doing a plug-in hybrid. But as we got into the details of the design, we found it was just impossible to make a great car, in my opinion, if it's a plug-in hybrid, because you split the baby.
So you think electric car is more like the future of the...
Absolutely. No, I would say 100%. It's just 100%. Just a question of the timeline.
我觉得今天采访可以说是相当的，我自己是相当的满意，觉得相当的成功。成功在哪儿呢？我觉得主要是我们看到的这个Musk 和媒体描述的珍珠侠是不同的人，他根本就不是什么珍珠侠，他就是一个钢铁侠。哦，I'm sorry。他说：“其实我成功也是最近2-3年的事儿，我经过很多的困难，到现在。”